So we all know Lego's come out with a lot of honestly pretty crazy pieces in its history, especially for themes like Bionicle. And I wanted to focus this video on just one piece because I'm honestly kind of surprised it didn't appear more often. This is a piece that was relegated to just 1 year of Bionicle, though it did come with 3 recolors within that year on 4 different sets. Back in 2006, Bionicle introduced some pretty radical sets, to be honest, with the Paraka. And the thing that really made the Paraka stand apart from previous sets was the fact that they had these spine pieces. Now, those spines, unfortunately, were built into the head, which did lead them to being a bit restrictive, especially for mocking purposes. And so in 2007, Lego opted to rectify this by giving us this spine right here. This is what I call the Elix spine because that's the set that I think most of us are familiar with it from, since most of them appear in that set, and it's obviously the most affordable of any set to come with these pieces. Plus, the spikes in that set are exclusive, as many of them are. As I mentioned, this was a piece that was only available in 2007, came in silver on 2 different sets, came in a trans dark blue and glow in the dark color, or trans medium blue and glow in the dark. Because parts variation, you can check out the parts variant forum over on Discord, by the way, to follow that up. But getting back to it, on Elix specifically, they were trans bright green with yellow, very similar color to the eye stalk on the red Vaki, for example. It's a really fascinating piece because, as I've mentioned in previous videos, it does exactly what it needs to do and nothing more, in the sense that there's not much going on with the piece itself in general, other than the fact that it is spikes with a connection on both ends. It opts for this pin connection, which I think works out fairly well here, and in this case here, it's fairly standard in its shape, going for the same shape as the Barraki spine from the year prior. That's my personal favorite of the spine pieces because it is simple. In this sense here, the simplicity ends up working in its favor because it helps this work as teeth on sets like Gadunka, but it also helps for the piece itself to actually, well, look like spikes, right? And in the side view here, we get these spikes coming off the side, but they do so in a sort of alternating pattern, which allows each of these to sort of zip together, right? Which works really well. You'll see something like that, in fact, on Elix set. But the reason I find this piece as fascinating as I do, probably more so than just the connections that are available on it, is because it is a piece relegated to 2007. That year came out with a lot of pieces that had a very specific motif, aquatic motif. Think of the tentacle whip piece from Kalima, for example. That feels like a piece that should remain exclusive to a specific set because it came with a set that was designed with the motif of a squid, right? And yet that piece lasted all the way up into like 2012 Hero Factory, I believe. So the fact that we got this and didn't see it ever again outside of 2007 honestly baffles me, especially when we had years in Bionicle like 2009 where the vehicles were essentially these sort of scrapped together arena battle machines, something that this would have been perfect for. Now, it's not to say that we never got spike pieces from Lego. Again, of course not. We got the Barraki stars all the way back in 2010 as well. Something else we saw that year was in Hero Factory with this piece. But one of the reasons I'm not as big a fan of this piece as I am of the previous spike is the sense that this does go a little bit above and beyond its original intent, its original focus. Though this is a spike armor piece, this large sort of pauldron design on the inside here obviously aims for a very specific aesthetic, having these small pistons on the interior. But also, because of its large size, it's a lot harder, well, I don't want to say harder to use. It sort of pushes itself into a very specific niche that this can very easily work around. So because of that, it's kind of unfortunate that we didn't see this in preferably more recolors. I would have personally loved to have seen white. I think that's a pretty obvious and demanding color for it, just because, well, teeth, right? You have Gadunka's set, might as well give them literal pearly whites, but also because, you know, when you look back at sets like Thok, those spines never came in white. They came in very light bluish gray, and so it would have been a completely new recolor for this piece. Obviously, there are other color combinations which came out in 2007, which were absolutely gorgeous that I would have loved to have seen them in as well. Trans brown with Keith orange, for example, would have been honestly incredible, in my opinion. But unfortunately, that's not the reality that we live in. So how do you use this piece in mocks? Well, I've done so in a handful, especially with the Barraki challenge that I continue to do in the background on the channel. Don't worry, it is still a thing. But one of the things that I've used it on that I think makes me just the happiest, makes my little brain synapses light up, is this one right here, the Anomalocaris. I'm never going to pronounce that correctly, right? Again, after this video. And that is this little build right here, a very simple build completely designed around this piece. In fact, its connections are what are holding this entire thing together. It's a very silly little build, obviously, and this was part of my 2007 Rahi building challenge sort of thing. I guess it's a self-imposed challenge, but you get the point, right? And it obviously uses these spines on the side of the model itself. So yeah, it's obviously a piece that has a lot of charm to it, and it's a piece that I just wish we would have seen used a bit further, a bit outside of 2007. Honestly, even into Hero Factory, I think this is a great piece. It works very well for filling out, you know, specific aspects of the build, filling out empty space within builds. The only thing I can think of that would have been why they didn't use it is either the cost of this piece, maybe the budget on this was a little bit too expensive. I can't imagine that would be the case, but I don't know. I didn't design it. Or maybe it has a higher failure rate than other pieces. I do notice that when I pick these up on occasion, they have a decent amount of flashing left over on the tips of these spikes, and so it's possible that that was something Lego just didn't really like, but didn't have a way around. I'm not specifically sure. But it might even mean that in some cases that flashing would connect, or whatever the case. This is all speculation purely. But yeah, I would have loved to have honestly seen it in more colors. I personally would love to use it in the Bar Magna expansion project. I'm mentioning so many projects. And also, I look at this and I look at sets like Gresh, for example, which has a very thorny appearance, and I'm just surprised that we didn't see it used on something like that, even in a dark green, lime green kind of color blend. Yeah, that would have been similar to Alex, sure, but it would have been cool to see it. Or brown would have been another really interesting one, is like a plant stem with thorns, or just straight green, so there's obviously options there. So yeah, it's a really fantastic piece, and I would definitely encourage you to go out of your way to experiment with it as well. It's very unique in the sense that it is this sort of rubbery material, so it can be twisted around and done all kinds of crazy things with. One of my favorite applications of this, which I didn't think to pull up until just now, so I haven't, is actually for a spiked Stronius club on one of my Bar Magna Gotorian that I designed forever ago, which is dark green and Keat orange. And then he just has those on a spike club. Anyway, you get the point. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. It is a look at a very strange, very peculiar, but very beloved Bionicle piece that maybe feels a little outside the realm of being Bionicle. And that kind of works in its favor. If you did like it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, because it really helps the channel out. And of course, you can always help the channel more by lending your thoughts in the comments below, or we can take that conversation further over on Discord, Instagram, or Patreon if you want to help support the channel and get some perks. And if you want to watch the last video I put out, I talked briefly about Patreon and changes that may be coming here in the near future. So take care.